All right, you guys are having a quiz tomorrow on Tuesday. We're going to cover 5-4. Only thing that's going to be on this quiz is 5-4, nothing else. So isosceles triangles, equilateral triangles, knowing if they're congruent, knowing if they're equilateral. Okay, which two sides are congruent at angles, or if it's an equilateral triangle. So we're going to solve these. So this one should have been pretty easy, hopefully. What kind of triangle is this? Good, this is an isosceles triangle, meaning that, please pay attention to this because you guys are going to have to figure out a lot of these, your sides and your angles, on the quiz. It's isosceles, and it's showing me my congruent marks. These two sides are going to be congruent, okay? So can someone tell me, if I were to label this A, B, C, which two angles would be congruent? Which two angles would be congruent? All right, angle C would be congruent to what? Good, angle B, okay? Just please make sure you know, if you have two sides that are congruent, which two angles would be congruent. A lot of that is going to be on your quiz. All right, so knowing that those two are congruent, and I have an angle that's 130, how am I going to figure out x? What's the first thing I should do?
180 minus 130 divided by 2.
Good, so I know I have my triangle's 180 degrees. I'm subtracting that angle. What would I get?
50.
Good, so now I know the two remaining angles have to add to equal 50. But we already stated that these two angles are going to be congruent, so they have to be equal. So what would I do with my 50?
25.
Good, so I'm taking that 50, I'm dividing it by 2. X is going to equal 25 degrees. Any questions on this one? This one was hopefully pretty easy. All right. Looking at number 2. Now they're giving me the two angles that are congruent. So again, I'm going to label A, B, C. Because these two angles are congruent, who could tell me which two sides would be congruent? Which two sides would be congruent looking at this one?
AC or AB.
All right, AC is congruent to, good, AB. Okay, please make sure you know how to write your sides and your angles. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my congruency marks. And because they're giving me my sides and they're telling me these sides are equal, how would I set this up as an equation?
3,
You're right, 3 what?
what's that called? Parentheses, x plus 2 equals 3 fourths.
Perfect. All you had to do for this now was solve for x. So first thing I'm going to do is distribute. And then now what am I going to do?
Minus 6, minus 6.
Good. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides of my equal sign.
Then x equals 6.
I'm going to get 3x equals what? 24 minus 6.
18.
And then last thing I'm going to,
X equals 6.
good, divide by 3. These are going to cancel. And x, let me get a darker green. X is going to equal 6, and I'm done. Okay, so please make sure you guys can identify isosceles and equilateral. Okay, which angles? Again, if you don't remember how to find the angles that are congruent, all you have to do is kind of draw arrows. And then looking at this one went from, what, sides to angles? Okay, so just please make sure you know how to find what's congruent. All right, you're going to get a lot of questions like these ones on the quiz, meaning you're going to really have to think about them. What is it asking me to find? We should already know some basic information. An entire triangle equals 180. Okay, the inside of a triangle equals 180. If it's an equilateral triangle, what does every single angle equal? Good, you have to know that. If it's equilateral, meaning all of my angles or sides that are congruent, And if my angles are also congruent, every single angle on the inside is going to equal 60, 60, 60. You have to know that. Okay, you have to know that. If you don't know that, please write it down so you know it.
It's just always 60.
Always going to be 60. All right, if it's equilateral, all my sides are equal. Okay, because my sides are equal, it's also considered an equiangular triangle, meaning all my angles are going to be equal. Okay, so if I went back and I did the little arrows to see what it's pointing at, again, my sides are equal, so it's pointing to all of my angles. My angles are going to be equal. All right, so because I know that, looking at number 3, is this an equiangular triangle?
Yeah.
Yes, I see all my angles. They're all congruent. So if I wanted to, I highly recommend you label every single thing. Don't just do it in your head. You need to label it to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label all of these angles 60. This entire thing, let me actually not do that. This entire thing is 60 right here. And then this one's also 60. Okay, so I want to try and find x and y. Because I know it's equiangular, what do I know about all my sides? If all my angles are congruent, all my sides are what? They're also congruent. So I'm going to go ahead and mark all my sides. This is 46, this is 46, this is 46. If I know that this entire side is 46, and they're giving me 16 units out of that 46, what do you think I would have to do to find y? Okay, good. Because this entire thing is 46, and they're already telling me this is 16 here, I need to figure out the remaining for y. So, how did I get what? The 46, because it's an equiangular triangle, is also equilateral. So all my sides, I'm just going to highlight them so you can see it, are going to be congruent. And because they gave me this 46 right here,
So all the sides are going to be 46?
all my sides are going to be 46. Okay, that's where I'm getting that 46 from.
Is it always going to give you a side? Like,
If it's asking you a question like this, it should always give you at least one side. Okay, so now that I know that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract. I'm subtracting 46 minus that 16 that they gave me, and what would I get for y? Good. I'm going to get 30 for y. So y is going to equal 30. Okay, now I have to just try and find my x. So here's my y. Now I have to find my x. How would I find my x? Please pay attention to this one. I am right now only going to look at this triangle right here. Just so I don't get mixed up, I'm going to erase the 60. I know that that entire angle equals 60, but I want to figure out if this part of my triangle, right here is x, I need to figure out whatever's right here. I need to figure out this measurement right here. Okay, so how would I figure out that little measurement? Let me pick a different color. How would I figure out my measurement? How would I figure out this measurement right here? How would I figure that one out? That light blue one. Anybody have an idea? All right, I'll explain it. Okay, I'm trying to figure out this little measurement right here. They're telling me this is x. So I'm looking at what I highlighted in green, this triangle. I know that this measurement is 80. I know that this measurement is going to be 60. I need to figure out what this measurement's going to be. So how would I find that?
80 minus 60.
I'm not subtracting. Remember, the inside of my triangle is going to equal 180, right? So I need to figure out, I need to add these. This angle plus this angle plus this angle has to equal 180. So I'm going to add my 80 plus my 60, or if you didn't want to do that, you could have just subtracted everything from 180. And what's 80 plus 60?
140.
Good. So now I have 140 degrees for these two sides. What am I going to do with that 140?
Subtract it with 180.
I'm going to subtract, yes, 180 minus my 140, and what would I get?
40.
40 degrees. So I know this angle is 40 degrees, and we already know that this entire thing has to be 60, so what would x equal? How would I figure that out?
60 minus 40.
Perfect. I'm going to subtract 60 minus 40, and what's that going to give me? 20 degrees equals x. Okay, x equals 20 degrees. So you really have to think about these questions. It's simple math. It's either adding, subtracting, or dividing. That's really all you're using. But you need to know what you're adding and subtracting by. All right, another way you could have done this is just showing you, I don't want to get you mixed up, but I just want to show you that you could also do it this way. This is a straight line right here. Let me use blue. This is a straight line right here. If I know that this angle is 80 degrees, I should be able to figure out this angle as well. Okay, I just have to subtract it from 180. This is 100 degrees, and let's just check our work. I'm going to highlight this triangle right here. I have 60 plus 100. What's that going to give me? What's 60 plus 100 going to give me? 160. And what's 160 plus 20? 180. So that is also a way to check, okay? You could use whichever triangle you want to use. Again, looking at this, there's a total of 3 triangles. You could use whichever one you want to figure it out. So it's up to you to figure it out. Instead of, let's say, instead of subtracting it, I could have just used these two and subtracted by 180, but it's up to you. Okay, so you could do it different ways. We could all see it different ways. We could use different ways to solve it. But make sure you're solving it correctly and you're double checking your work.
This is so hard. It's so hard.
Miss Chung, I didn't get it.
It's just a lot of, you just have to be able to try and figure it out. So let's look at this one. Okay, find x and y.
X
So,
is 60.
all right, we're going to check. We're going to do it together. So looking at this triangle right here, what kind of triangle is this? Equilateral triangle. So all my angles have to equal what?
60.
Good. So 60, 60, 60. They're giving me my congruency marks, so I'm just stating what they're already giving me. I'm not really solving anything. If this side right here is congruent to this side, what should this side equal that they're not giving me? What should this side equal? 20, good. And if it's an equilateral triangle, what do I know about, if it's an equiangular triangle, what do I know about all my sides? They're also going to be 20. So if this one's 20, this is also going to be 20. And this one's also going to be 20. How would I find my y? How would I solve for y?
5y equals 20 divided by 5. 5 y equals 1.
Perfect. 5y equals 20. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And my y is going to equal, y equals what?
4.
Good. Perfect. Y is going to equal 4. So that one was pretty easy. Now I have to find my missing angle. Okay, so looking back at this triangle, this side right here is a straight line. So if they're giving me 60 degrees out of my, how much is a straight line?
180.
Good. If this entire line is 180, I need to figure out this remaining piece. So how would I figure that out?
180
Minus 60.
Good. And what would I get if I subtract 180 minus 60?
120.
Good. So I know that this right here is 120 degrees. And now I'm looking at this triangle by itself. Let me get purple. I'm looking at this triangle right here by itself. Purple. Purple doesn't wanna. This one right here. All right, I'm looking at this one. We know by looking at it, it's an isosceles triangle. So X, so these two angles, this angle has to be congruent to this angle. So if I know that my angle at the top is 120, what do I have to do to figure out those two angles?
Subtract by 180 and divide by 2.
Good. 180 minus 120, and we should know what that one is. 60. And if I know that these two added together have to be 60, what would I have to do? Good. 60 divided by 2, what would I get?
30.
Good. So X equals 30 degrees. So yes, with practice, you guys could skip some of these steps, but please make sure you are checking your work and you are working them out correctly. All right, explain why triangle ABC is isosceles. How would I know ABC is an isosceles triangle? How can we tell? Can someone tell me, how could you tell that these are isosceles triangles? Did anybody work it out? If you worked it out and you showed your work, I would consider that explanation. So can someone tell me how to solve this? What do we know about certain angles?
Angle E equals 70.
Hmm?
Angle E equals 70.
Okay, so I'm going to highlight what we know first. This triangle in blue is an isosceles triangle. They're giving me my congruent marks. So this angle is also going to be 70 degrees. What's the measurement, or how would I find the measurement of angle C?
40.
Okay, this would be 40. What else do I know is 40?
The other side.
The vertical angle. And if I'm looking at it, it looks very similar.
So 70.
So this is also going to be 70. So mainly because I have vertical angles and the angles are the same, it's going to be an isosceles triangle. So if you want to make those congruent marks, you can make little congruent marks to make it an isosceles. Marco?
Is that enough for showing the work?
Yeah.
Well, how
Yeah.
do you get 40?
How did I get 40? Okay, first I knew that this blue triangle right here is isosceles because they're giving me those marks right here. So if this is 70, I wrote that this is 70. 70 plus 70, 140. And I know an entire triangle is 180. So I did 180 minus 140. And that's going to give me 40 degrees, which is my remaining angle. And then I know that they're vertical. So I have vertical angles. And because they're giving me this 70 right here, if I add 70 and 40, then subtract it by 180, that should give me my 70 left over. And because these two angles are congruent, these two sides would also be congruent. Questions on 5? Okay. Can an isosceles triangle be an obtuse triangle? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. You don't have to explain, just answer the question. This was fine.
We're not to the bottom there.
All right, next page. This one was more of puzzles, figuring out, so like kind of like definitions, information. So we're going to do this one as well. When an isosceles triangle has exactly two congruent sides, these two sides are the what? What are they called? So looking at my options, what are they called? Legs, okay? All right, I have my legs. Okay, so if you wanted to write in the word. All right, the angle formed by the legs of an isosceles triangle is the blank angle. What is it? Good. Vertex. You know what? I'll write it over here.
Is there gonna be vocab on the test?
Good to know. The third side of an isosceles triangle is the what?
Was that a yes or no?
I would say study them.
The base.
The third side of an isosceles triangle is the what? What'd you say, Mia?
Base.
Perfect. Base. So let me. And base is best. If two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite to them are what? Perfect. If a triangle is equilateral, then it is equiangular. All right, some students said they were confused on this part. Please pay attention. What kind of triangle is this? What kind of triangle is this? Equilateral. Okay, it's showing me my sides. Lateral starts with an L, lines, sides, equilateral. What is that telling me about my angles? They all have to be equal. So because I know that, what do all of these angles have to equal? 60, 60, 60. So now let's go ahead and read what it's asking. For XY, they're telling me XY, so right here, this side, is 8. What should ZY also be? 8, perfect. So I'm going to write 8, and that is the word width. All right, now if the measure of angle Y is 60, what's the measure of angle Z? 60 as well. So it's A. And then looking at this one, I'm just going to erase these because we're asking about sides again. Now they're telling me side YX. Here is YX. If this is 13, what's ZX or XZ? It should also be 13. So pen. All right. Maybe. You'll have more thinking, little harder questions, but yes, you should know how to solve those. Any questions on these? All right, you guys are having a quiz tomorrow. What I mean by maybe a little more challenging, like the questions on the previous page. What was it, 3 and 4? Maybe more like those, okay, where they have information within the triangle. But you guys should also know how to find the sides that are congruent, how to find the angles that are congruent. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody? All right, please study. This is your last quiz. You guys will be having your last test on Thursday. That'll cover 5-3 and 5-4. So you guys will be getting your quizzes back Wednesday well, I think one tomorrow, one Wednesday. This one, the one that you're having tomorrow, you're gonna get back Wednesday, so you go help study. Please study for this quiz. Majority of it is multiple choice, so definitely study.